Hello again. This week marked the 140th anniversary of the Battle of Isandlwana. Zulu warriors overwhelmed the British camp and defeated them. The reenactment was held on Friday in Dundee in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, a musical lecture by African historian and musician Mbuso Khoza is bringing this history to life at the Joburg Civic Theatre this weekend. Mbuso Khoza joins us in studio now this morning. Mkhathini, sawubona. Because you were performing last night, and we appreciate making time very early this morning. I'd like us to start maybe by reflecting on the life and time of Ubaba Oliver Mtukudzi. Who was he to you, and what did he mean to African music?
He was a cultural custodian. I mean, he used his language throughout his compositions, and the entire world understood him. So I would really say we've lost a hero and a soldier, but what we can do maybe is to instrumentalize his heritage to the young people and say, look at this person from Zimbabwe, but he was so celebrated in South Africa, you would say he was born here. I mean, most of the festival in South Africa, you know, he was part of it as if he was from here, and I think we need more musicians like him. After losing Ubaba Hugh Masekela as well, I'm wondering if South Africa is really maybe looking at grooming the musicians of his caliber.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when we speak about heritage and we go to the lecture that you delivered, what an honor and what a treat to be in the audience watching that. You start and you throw some people off because you're thinking this is about the Battle of Isandlwana. Then you come on, you're wearing the Sotho hat, the Basotho blanket, and you not only acknowledge your Zulu ancestry, but you also acknowledge your Sotho ancestry. Why was that so important when you said that this is not just about the Zulu people, but Basotho?
I think South Africa is suffering from this Cold War tribalism. So now when we look at the Battle of Isandlwana as this historical moment where Africans conquered the mighty British soldiers, I think we need to invite our fellow Africans and say, let's celebrate together, because if we say, Amazulu, Ashula Mangisi, and we position that as a Zulu thing, I think we are wrapping it on. Because already it's bad as it is. Umsutho dislikes Umzulu, but Kilitebele, Amazulu now, they dislike other Tsonga speaking, but Zilwanyana. So now, the Battle of Isandlwana, I'm looking at the leadership of the time. These are the people who are willing to sacrifice their lives. So now, can we use the same gesture in the nation building, you know, instead of perpetuating this sickness, a tribalism? So now, I think the Battle of Isandlwana is the best place to try and explore, these measures as part of the nation building in terms of the unity. Because as we're preparing for this battle, it is said that the head of the houses, they called their heirs, Omafungwase, Amazibulu. If we do not come back from this battle, please look after your families, because they were prepared to die for the future of their kids, for the heritage of their kids, for the language, for the land. So now you ask yourself that in the modern day, as we are suffering from these challenges around tribalism, what is our leadership doing about it? And who is gaining from all of this when we're fighting against each other? So this is why in my opening on Isandlwana lecture, I had to wear the Sotho regalia as a sign that I'm paying homage to King Moshoeshoe, because 1851 he fought with the Boers. Up to 1858, he conquered, the British forces as well. But we never get to hear about that.
Right. When we look at the battle, Isandlwana, in the context of anti-colonial struggle, what does it mean for black people?
In the modern day, it means that we need to reconsider how we relate to one another. As they were faced with armed soldiers, Abelumbi, because that's one of the names King Shaka gave to the colonizers, because they would kill you even before you get closer. So bakulumba ugude. But the unity of the people at that time and how they related to each other, bathi ngesizulu izwi lintongoloza ligibele elinye uyadela wena usulapho. I mean, you see your brother being shot, lying down, and you are jumping, trying to fight further. Uyadela wena usulapho, uyadela wena usulapho. Do we have the same mentality in the modern day in terms of the leadership? I'm looking forward to a day where these political parties formed by our black people sit down as oppositions and say, you know what, we are Dela and Sulabo. It doesn't matter the differences that we have, but let us take care of the needs of the people.
I'd like us to maybe go back and talk about Battle of Isandlwana, perhaps a brief history lesson for the sake of someone who doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yes. 1878, January 22, Umasingana in Zulu. It was a battle between the British soldiers and the Zulu army under the leadership of King Cetshwayo Dlamvuzo Kampande kasenza ngakhona kajama. But I think the key offense around this, it was the ultimatum that was put forward by the British leadership. Abo Henry Battle, Sir Theophilus Shepstone, Nabo O. Danforth, saying that King Cetshwayo must disband his army so that they can be able to preach the gospel freely in the Zulu land without any disturbance. And now the problem was that as they're starting to preach the gospel, if you have a wife, and now there is a ritual at home, they say, if your wife has accepted the Lord, she mustn't be part of the preparation of the traditional beer because it's evil. But now when you investigate how churches are operating, isidlo on Sunday, they use wine. But our culture became inferior now. That oh no, that's evil. You know. So now, before now, the actual battle took place. But there were so many causes around it. You ask yourself, Umguni or Umzulu or Umkhoza, what is it that we pride ourselves in? For instance, if you meet a man from Unongoma and you greet him and you say, how are you, sir? Where you come from? Mbuso Khoza, ngisuka show ngizalwa ubani ozalwa ubani. You know, they pride themselves in where they come from, in who their forefathers are. It means they will tell you the stories that were shared by their forefathers. Now you can imagine, as we're preparing for the Battle of Isandlwana, fighting against the jurisdiction of the British, what was going on their heads. And when you meet a woman again from maybe the north of KZN, they pride themselves in who they are. So now, before the battle took place, but there are these emotions that were driving people insane. But it's all Tatas feel, ladies. And many people died. There are very, very, very important people, remarkable men in this battle, like Umkhosana Wagabiel. They say that wawusinga wagiya wambone waphansi kanti useshawe inhlavu baqhubeka bambongela thinking ukuthi usaqhubeka uyagiya, only to find that he was dead. Umavumengwana wakwaNtuli, he also died in that battle, and many others. It is said that people died, they were bursting like balloons on that mountain. You know, so when we say we're commemorating, I don't think that there's something to celebrate, but I think we need to use this particular event as part of the decolonial project and the redress of the entire system in our country, and say, are we united like the regiments of that time?
Sure.
Yeah.
Amahubo, when you were performing that on stage or explaining it on stage, and you showed when the warriors were singing and when the British were also singing, and how you just drummed it out. Just from the beating, there was no drum, there was no theatrics in what you were doing with the ladies and gentlemen on stage. It was pure just voice and using your feet. You could feel it in your heart. Was that part of how Lempi was won?
I think Amahubo and the war cries played a pivotal role in terms of giving people strength. Because when you are maybe performing Isaga or Khoza Isaga in isiZulu, it gives you strength. If I were to carry this couch, I would feel maybe its weight if I'm saying nothing. But if I say, Komula Sasha, and then I feel nothing, immediately I take it wherever. So I think Amahubo and the Isaga, war cries and Zulu hymns, they served as a spice and the salt in the preparation of the battle. And they are the prayers, Amahubo are the prayers of the nation. What do I mean by this? There is a saying in the, I think it's Latin, ora qui cantat, he who sings prays twice. So it means as they were singing, they were already praying to God, and God was listening to them. That's how they conquered the battle. When you listen to the context of the lyrics that they were used there, Milando zinkomo nabantu iha eshanyamazane sesingamane sithetha macala sisingele sesihlabile. You know, they talk about the history of human beings and cows. You know that this is the land of our forefathers. These are our cows. You know, when I was growing up as a young boy, I mean as a head boy, I remember the connection that I used to have with the head of cows. You know, they would recognize the tone of my voice, you know, many as they were at that time. So you can imagine now when the English people are coming and dismantling the entire kingdom. They want no regiments, they want no lifestyle that we used to live. You know, they died for the real politics those times.
Sure. And when you juxtapose that to today, and I guess that's the question you were asking earlier on, is what is the leadership of today doing? I'd like to talk about the sheer brilliance of King Cetshwayo and his military precision. When you were describing the composition of his military, please share that with our viewers.
Yeah, this another thing we were discussing the other day, that Lord Chelmsford, who was in charge of this battle, representing the British, he thought he was coming to a picnic because he was sipping a tea whilst the soldiers are fighting. He thought whilst he was sipping the tea, his soldiers were going to kill black people like cockroaches, because the British army were armed with a very, very, very well engineered gun called Martini Henry that was taken to a Swiss engineer by the name of Frederick Martini, and then later after 1862 it was taken to Alexandra Henry of Edinburgh. This is why the gun was called Martini Henry. But the Zulu army was only armed with spears, cowhide, shields, and wearing animal skins, amabheshu, amambata, ongiyane nemqhele. They were not, armed, you know, the same, or they were not technologically advanced as those people who had bulletproofs, who had, the heads that could protect, bullets. But the structure of the war. Do you remember that King Shaka used to have the horns of the cow, but this one had the horns of a buffalo? You can imagine how it was. So on the left you have the younger ones, on the other hand you have the stronger ones, and then the chest you have a different setup, and that's where the experienced ones, those who can't even run, you know, the older ones, So if they finish all of these, they would get to the experience one, they will tell you that we are ready to die, Veles Batal. You know, and they were 10 kilometers apart. The general commander, who is my forefather, Unchingwa Mahole, kuthiwa wathi kwantuthe ishunqale siyoke siwashisa amanqindi but you know, can you imagine running from this side to the other side, because he would tell this side to attack and maybe tell this side, okay, stop now, the other side, the other horn is going to attack. At the age of 74 years, doing all of that work,
sure,
barefooted. So the dedication of our forefathers really need to be applauded during this month. And if it was for me, we would celebrate Umasingana, have these dialogues in different places. We go to Lesotho, we discuss this battle. We go to Swaziland, our neighbors, you know, and discuss this. And we do the same with Ingwala, you know, as part of a cultural exchange. But we tend to glorify a cultural exchange if we have to go to Europe.
Yeah.
We never, you know, and now Amahubo, they play a huge role in terms of social cohesion. I made an example the other day that if you go to Pietermaritzburg, when they talk, maybe bezothi ilanga, but when you go to Eshowe, bezothi ilanga, you know, so now the dialects are different, but if they have to sing, they would sound the same. Ilanga la shona, they would sound the same. So now that the role that could be played by Amahubo in terms of working on this cohesiveness, you know, I think it would go a long way. I can imagine if Abesuthu were to learn Zulu songs, Amazulu, learn the Zulu hymns, Amahubo, Abesuthu, or Huhobela, or Mikorotlo. It would be beautiful, because that's when we'll get to understand each other, because if I make time to understand your culture, it will be unlikely to offend you. But if I don't know your culture, I will offend you a lot. This is why we are scattered like this as Africans. We don't make time to get to know each other.
Time to get to know each other. In closing up the conversation, you said something when you were closing up the show and introducing a lady. You alluded to this, the exploitation of black women by black men. Is that culturally based? Kwenzakalan?
I said at this juncture, I think we need to have patriarchy and feminism to have a dialogue. You know, Amadoda, they need to tell Abantu Swazan what is it that they expect from them. Labet Swazan, and they maybe communicate what is it that they're expecting from men. Because now I don't see a place for culture in all of these activities. You ask yourself, if a woman is raped by a man who is a protector of the future of our kids, if Swazane is retaliating on the patriarchy, there is no togetherness, and I think there is no place for culture at all. We need to have a patriarchy and feminism to have a dialogue, and we need to face these horrible memories about the victimization of our women in the modern day. And I also mentioned that now, after the Battle of Isandlwana, yes, the battle was won, it's fine. But what is the role of a traditional leadership in the modern day? Because if we were to say today, we're going to dismantle the entire traditional leadership, I'm telling you, you would see the regiments drilling maybe in town. But if a young woman is raped and killed, you get no reaction from the traditional leadership. So what is their role in the modern day then?
Your music is such an offering, almost a sweet-smelling incense to God. If you don't mind, keep mhlambe on this Sunday, ngehubo lakho.
No, but there was a song after the Battle of Isandlwana, because there was the Battle of Isandlwana, and there was a rogue's drift battle that we call Impi Yaseshiyan. So that's when King Zajau said, you should not now continue to fight with these people, but our forefathers went ahead and they were slaughtered. So, but one of the guys who were there said, "Okandaba kashongo njalo." how Zulu sala nembi amadube esandlana, what did that mean? It means that as people were lying on top of the mountain, black and white, and the horses, black and white, it seemed like it was amazebra, amadube esandlwana. But now, today, we can still say Zulu salwa nembi, namanje sisalwa nembi if we are facing tribalism. So they said, Wagandaba agashongo njalo bathi Zulu salwa nembi ihamadube sandla ihagashongo njalo bathi Zulu sa hey ngizothanda nikwazi abantu manje.
Msud, Mloto, Mkhathini. Siyabonga baba.
Yes, thank you so much for saying Mkhathini, because I've heard that people are calling us all Hlas. All cause are not the Hlasers, we are not the Povunganas. Siwo Mkhathini.
Siyabonga.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Baba Mbuso.